Fabulous. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. So, first of all, for those of you who don't know, Vicky was a collaborator in this amazing book, in fact, award-winning book, Your Platform Power. First of all, Vicky, tell me, what was I paying to work with?
You are a delight to work with, Ekua. You are a delight. You know this. No, you're a delight to work with.
No, it's great. So what I really would love to hear from you is, we know you as the book magic queen, everything books, getting them out there, formatting them, publishing them, writing them, and getting your ideas together. But before we dive into that, I want to talk to you more about your, visibility as a comedian and as a speaker. And I'd love you to share with us, why you stepped into that more in the last year.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so I am also a professional stand-up comedian. I actually get paid to do it, which is really fun. I'm not new to performing, actually, because I've been a trapeze artist and pole dancer for a very long time. And so I have performed on a lot of stages, but that's different from deliberately being up there and trying to make people laugh with your words. And so it was a couple of years ago. I've always been a massive fan of comedy and a fan of I love what comedy can do to bring people together and to highlight important issues without browbeating people about it. And so I think it's an incredibly valuable skill. And I've always been kind of I can write funny, but it's different to stand up on stage. So I was like, I'd quite like to have a go at that. And I mentioned it to a friend of mine, Dave James, who is also on LinkedIn. And he was like, oh. And then I saw him at an event and he was like, yeah, I booked you in to do stand-up comedy in July. And I was like, excuse me, what? So that was kind of how I got started. I absolutely loved it. It went really well. It probably went too well, to be honest, because my next go round did not go as well, and it was a bit of a shock. But yeah, I really enjoyed it because, and part of the reason that I wanted to do it is because I'm also autistic. I was diagnosed a couple of years ago, late diagnosed, and I just talking to various people, talking to my husband, made me realize that, actually a lot of people don't understand what it's like. They don't understand how difficult it can be. And, unless you've lived a thing, and we all think that everybody is the same as us, right? It's the theory of mind. And so I was just like, you know what? I think this could be a really good way to help people understand what it's like to be in my head if nobody else is, and just to show, some of the stuff that I struggle with, have always struggled with, some of the things that I face that, might look like I'm doing okay with it, but actually inside it's in endless internal screaming. How often I have to literally restrain myself from crying or punching something. And it's just, and that was my way of doing it. And if you can make it funny, and you can make that connection with people, so that's kind of why I wanted to do that.
Amazing. And tell us more about stepping into speaking. In fact, recently we were both at the same event, and you spoke at that event, which I was delighted to see you stepping out and speaking more. So tell a bit more about your speaking journey.
Yeah, so I love talking about myself. Obviously, everybody loves talking about stuff. I love talking about what I do. I love talking about my mission. I love talking about the magic of books and the magic of writing and how magical that kind of communication is. And so I have been trying to do more of that. I've been putting myself out there more, partly encouraged by you. Thank you so much, and your wonderful book. But yeah, on Friday, we were both at Samantha Harmon's event, The Gathering, and it was a fabulous event. It was brilliant, really, really, really cool. And Samantha asked me to step in and have a conversation with her on stage about books, about her book, about her message, and all the rest of it. And of course I said yes, because we have to grab opportunities that come our way with both hands. And it was, Samantha's a delightful person to talk to anyway. And it was really wonderful. It was really great to look around the room and just see little light bulb moments go off in people's heads as you say something that might be obvious to you, but other people, it's not obvious to other people. And it can really shift a worldview and really change things for people to hear that kind of thing from someone on a stage. And so, yeah, it was really, really good fun. And not only that, I was just telling you beforehand, not only that, but yesterday, a brand new client signed a contract with me and paid a deposit because we met at that event after I did that talk. And so if you are in any doubt as to how amazing, speaking can be, that is just one example of it. And I'm having more conversations just off the back of that single event. So it's really a very powerful way to to show people what you're all about in a very real, like, it's difficult to fake stuff like that when you're in front of people.
Yeah.
We're not actors. Most of us are not actors,
Yeah.
and so we don't have that skill. So it's just a way of being really real in front of people, I think.
Definitely. And tell us more. What is your mission, actually, as someone who is helping authors to get their voice out into the world?
Well, let me tell you.
Go ahead, Vicky.
Yeah. So, and I am being conservative in this percentage, because it's actually quite a difficult statistic to find for reasons that I hope will become obvious. But less than 3%, and some people reckon less than 1% of all of recorded history contains women's voices. And when you add in, when you add into the mix, Black and brown voices, LGBTQ voices, disabled voices, neurotypical voices, poor people's voices. The amount of our recorded history that is history is vanishingly small. It's written by a bunch of privileged, wealthy people for their own agendas, because that is what happened. It's not always deliberate either. It's just they're going to put their own slant on it. And so what we think of as our history is not. There's such it's not even that there's a massive chunk of our history missing. It's that what we've got is such a very tiny sliver of human history that I was just like, and when I started, we don't think about it. When I started thinking about this, I was like, it's insane. Like it's so I just, and that's part of the reason why I do what I do, because I tend to work with all types of people. I've got some some of my most lovely clients are cis white men. They're lovely. But my mission, really, I want to help more people publish books that traditionally have been excluded from the publishing world, because that is, otherwise we're not getting a true picture of what the world is like and who lives in it. And that's just, it's not only kind of bad from the point of view of people having their voices heard, it's bad from the point of view of, like, I want a full picture of the world that I live in, from people who don't look like me or have the same experiences as me. Like, it just makes it richer. So yeah, that is why I do what I do.
Well, and this pun is intended, by the way. We're on the same page, so
I
had to, Vicky. That's what I had to. So I'm on a mission to help 1 million diverse speakers get paid to speak, and this book is part of that mission, because I can't, coach and reach everyone by one person alone. What I can do is publish a book which can go around the world and be spread and can be in other languages at some point. And that can help me to go further and reach loads of other audiences. But Vicky, I want to talk a bit about, like, writing a book and actually having the courage to get over ourselves and to commit to that process. What I really love to for us to talk about a little bit is about your Kickstart workshop, which I actually went on, because actually, even though I kind of knew what I wanted to write, I was still sort of unclear as to where each way I wanted to go. And by participating in that workshop, it helped me to park something and I was like, actually, no, that's not it, and move really towards where I wanted to go. So tell us a bit more about that workshop and why it's a helpful tool for aspiring authors.
Yeah, thank you for doing the workshop and for mentioning it. But yeah, it's really interesting, because I think a lot of the time, and a lot of the help that is out there is for, you want to start writing, here are some writing tips, here are some things on structure, here are some things on all of that. It's all great, but I think there's a chunk missing that comes before. And that chunk is, like, thinking really deeply actually about why you want to write the book and why it's important to you. Because if it's because sometimes we think we want to do something, and I can't tell you how many half-finished projects I've got everywhere, but it's like, I really want to do this, and it's like, what it is like, I kind of want to do it and I'm kind of interested in it for now, and I don't really interrogate those things with any kind of critical thought or any deeper than, that looks like fun, let's give it a go. And so I think it's a really useful exercise to do before you even start writing, is to think about, well, what does this mean to me actually? Like, why am I doing it? What has somebody else put the idea in my head? And if so, is it going to stick? Like, is that sometimes it's a good thing that somebody else puts the idea in your head. Like, Samantha's writing her book because I messaged her and was like, "Where's your book?" And so there's lots of different ways. But I think if we sit down and think about, what are our actual reasons for writing the book? What is the wider mission beyond just I kind of fancy doing this. And you said, one of the things that people get stuck with, and this is one of my favorite parts, and I think one of my zone of genius things, is like showing people that actually their book is bigger than just their idea and their desire to do it. And that can be enough. The idea is great. Like, people's ideas are wonderful and great, but we tend to think about it just in those terms. It's like, oh, I've got this idea for a book. I've got this idea for a book. They don't think about how actually that extends out into the universal. Like, how does it extend out to bigger things that are going on in the world? And a good example of that is somebody that I'm working with at the moment, and they're writing a book on the musical soundscape of a city in the UK, and they've just banned busking there. And this person was like, oh, well, I'm not sure how, I know. I'm not sure how much, well, I have thoughts. I'm not sure how much to talk about that because it's going to be dated in a few years. And I said, well, I don't think it will be, because actually that's a symptom of the suppression of creativity and artistic voices that we're seeing in the rise of fascism at the moment. It's a symptom of the wider world that is happening around us. And so actually, like, with the best will in the world, I don't think it's going to be solved in the next couple of years, sadly. I think this is a longer term project. But I said, but even if it is solved in the next couple of years, that is a microcosm of a piece of our history that is really important. And she hadn't really looked at it like that. And so it was just like, well, this is how this thing that has caught your eye and has interested you, this is how it actually relates to what's going on. And you don't have to write a political book to do that, but to understand how it fits in to the wider world, I think, is really important. And that can help you get past that kind of imposter syndrome thing as well. So it's like, oh, who's going to want to hear about this? It's like, actually take your ego out of it, because your idea is bigger than you. And I think that's a really important thing to understand and think about.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And thinking about not only just committing to write it, let's say that we've got past that, we're disciplined and we're ready to go. The next thing is getting it out there to the world, to publications. Let's talk a little bit about, what people's options are potentially, and what are some of the pros and cons. So I am someone who likes to be in control of every part of my book. That's just me. Not everyone needs to do that, but for me, self-publishing was the route that I have been down, and I've been down more than once, and I'll be going down it again at some point. But it's not for everyone. So I'd love you, Vicky, to tell people a little bit about self-publishing, and then going out to seek a publisher.
Yeah, so there are pros and cons to both, and there are reasons for doing both. For most of the people that I work with, self-publishing is the way forward, because, like you, they want a lot more control over what they've got. And I think people don't realize actually how much control you might have to give up with a publisher, especially with the big ones, with if you're thinking like Penguin, Bloomsbury, Wiley, that kind of thing. They are going to have quite a big say in the type of book that you put out there, because they are going to have agendas of their own, and kind of publishing schedules and themes and things that they're doing. And they do know what works to an extent, but they don't always get it right. Like, they're not the the kind of Lord High Vizier or whatever. They don't always, they have an awful lot of knowledge and expertise, but it's not all of the knowledge and expertise. And so they're always looking at things through that kind of narrow lens. And I think people don't realize, like, if they don't like your title, they will change your title. If they don't like the way it's written, it is changing. The publishing world is changing, but this is particularly a minefield for people who aren't straight white wealthy people, because they will want to sanitize voices. They will want to, whitewash stuff. They'll want to greenwash stuff. And it does happen, and it happens less, and things are changing, but not fast enough. And I overheard a conversation not so long ago. And somebody was like, oh yeah, I'd been asked to write a disabled character into this book. And the feedback from the editors came back, and I kid you not, okay, but not that disabled. And it's just like, yeah, I know. And it's, yeah. And it's just and quite often when these characters are written into books, it's just like, oh, well, they just need to speak about disability. It's like, can they not just be a person existing doing their thing? So, there's always agendas, and that, I think, can be a bit of a problem. Having said that, you will also get amazing cover designers. You will get amazing editors. You will have that provided for you. They will deal with all of the publishing aspects of things, kind of the fiddly bits, the ISBNs, that sort of stuff. So there's all of that as well. They will do some PR, but again, this is something that people don't realize, the amount of work that you have to put in. I'm working with a client at the moment. Her book is finished and out there. the amount of, I have never seen anyone work so hard on publicizing their book, and she's being published by a traditional publisher. And so unless you are Stephen King, you know, they're not going to put in that level of effort for you because they have so many other people. So it's kind of pros and cons. Having said all that, if Penguin offer me a publishing deal, I'm probably going to say yes, because, you know, but I would write a different type of book for them than I would if I was writing something to support my own business or my own mission or my own goals. So there's pros and cons for both, and you want to be thinking about, again, it goes back to, why are you writing this book? What do you want it to do for you? How do you see it fitting into your personal and private life, but also into your business goals as well? Because if it's a book that you're going to want to turn into a course, for example, or a podcast series, you're not going to be able to do that easily if you go traditional publishing, because they're going to have control. You know, the copyright is going to be the publishers. Well, it's not, it's a bit more complicated than that, but there's going to be restrictions as to what you can do. They don't like you giving away your books for free because it cuts into their profit margins. And sometimes for business owners, it makes good business sense to give away books for free. I've just put 100 of my books in goodie bags for an upcoming event, because I know that if I can get my book into 100 people's hands who are my kind of people, that's so valuable for me. So it's like, but I couldn't do that if I was doing, if it was a traditionally published book. So there's kind of pros and cons. There's, you know, the publishers will take care of a lot of stuff for you, but self-publishing is not difficult. It's just can be very fiddly. It can be a bit of a pain. As you know, you've done it. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things to consider. But anybody is more than capable of doing it themselves. So yeah, there's pros and cons.
Yeah, so let's just stick with this point about book giveaways, because I think this is a really important point, especially if we're speaking to entrepreneurs, business owners, people who are, you know, wanting to use their book as potentially a way to win business, to get people understanding more about their world, and build relationships in that way. So again, like you said, you know, why you're publishing the book is super important. So you have to be super clear about that. And if you are potentially in the business world, giving your book away is a means to actually make money in the end, but it's not the fastest way to cash here. We've got to remember that the book, obviously, you've got to invest in that to produce it. And yes, you're going to sell some, obviously, to your friends and family when you publish it, launch, fine, all very well and good. But the long term, if you are in that space, giving it away is one of the best things that you can do, and it's counterintuitive, and it sounds really like, oh my gosh, like I spent all this money, and you know, why? And I totally get that. But one of the things I want to share about that is, like, honestly, people are so impressed. As I used to do this when I had my first book, I used to give it away as a business card, because it's the best business card. Because when you go there and you give it to a select few of people that you're trying to really build relationships with, they're like, you gave me a book and you signed it, and they're like, wow. You're like, yes, you're always gonna remember me. So Vicky, have you ever like actually given away your book as networking or whatever?
Yeah, 100%. I don't really go to networking events anymore. That are just networking events because I find them extremely taxing. But for, you know, if I was more organized, I would have taken a bunch of books perhaps to Samantha's
one.
But what I did do is take bookmarks. So I took bookmarks. So that's kind of my business card. But yeah, in the past, I have been to networking events and I have taken a handful of books with me and I've given them to people and I've asked for my business card. And they've been like, what, really? Like you say, it's like a proper wow. This is a really good
proper wow factor.
Wow factor. And you know, not all of those are going to turn into clients, but some of them did. And so you brought up a really important point as well. It's like, you are not going to get rich off the back of selling books. Like it's very, very unlikely. If you are writing fiction and you're churning out a lot of fiction and you're doing series, you can absolutely make an absolute ton of money. And there are people doing that. But for non-fiction books, you're almost certainly not going to make yourself rich off the back of the book sales themselves. And I always tell people that. So it's like, oh, you know, how long is it going to take for me to get a return on my investment? And I'm like, well, from the book sales, you're probably not, honestly, or it's going to take a while. But what you want to think about is exactly what you said. What is the book going to do for me? Like how many conversations would I have to have with somebody to get like a really good, high quality, you know, high priced coaching client versus if I could put my book in the hands of a bunch of people, that's going to do a lot of that legwork for me, and it's going to save a lot of time as well, because I don't have to have conversations with people who are not my people, because they're going to read my book. And yours is the same. It's like if your book is really in your true voice, and it really is a reflection of you, which ours are, then people are going to get to the end of that book and they're either going to really like us, or they're not, you know, or they're not going to care very much, which is fine. It's gonna be kind of neutral. But it's the ones who get to the end and they're like, oh my gosh, this person is my vibe. I really want to get in touch. Then you've kind of cut out all of that, you know, the tire kicking stuff and the, you know, are you my person, that kind of thing. And it just does a lot of that hard work for you.
No, I totally agree. So yeah, sticking with the, like, you know, books and ecosystems. I mean, I know it's not your particular area, but like, you know, if you were a business person and you wanted to be smart, you could, you know, build all kinds of things into your book, whether that is, you know, quizzes, whether that is QR codes to offers, or into your news list, or into you know, special one-off events that you're having in a promotional year. I mean, Vicky, you could really do something fantastic if you think about what you want to do this book, you know, for. And like, have you had anyone who's worked with you in the past who's been like, yeah, I really want to like use my book to really create an ecosystem around the work that I'm doing?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I do that with my book, and it's part of the reason I get people to really think about their goals right at the beginning, so that they can build that into their books. Because it's like I always say, if you're, and you know, this is not suitable for every book. It's not suitable for a book that's perhaps more mission led, that is less tied to the business. But for a lot of the people that I work with, they've got a business that they want to run, and I'm a good example of this. So it's like I always say, if people buy your book from a bookshop, not from you directly, you've lost them, because they are going to read the book, they might love it, but then you've got no way of keeping in contact with them. Whereas if you're putting something in your book, like my call to action is always get on my email list. I always want people on my email list. I've been writing and sending emails to my list for 12 years now. I've done that most days, so it's been almost daily daily emails for 12 years. And that's part of my ecosystem. So people will either find my book somewhere and then they'll join my email list, and then I'll have things to sell them, or it'll be part of my, you know, part of my funnel. Maybe it's the first thing that I offer people when they join my email list, because it's a low price. It's an easy way to get to know me a bit more. And it's just like, hi, you know, thanks for joining my emails. I'm going to give you whatever I said I was going to give you. And then at the end of it, it's like, have you got my book yet? Here it is. You can get a copy from here. And so, yeah, always think about how can I build it into my ecosystem. And even for mission-led books that are less tied to a business, it's like, you know, it's good to be able to keep in touch with people. So if you've got a newsletter, then tell people how they can find out more about you. At least tell them where they can find you on social media, so that they can then go and follow you. It's also
always... Vicky, I've got a benefit with this. With those people, they could be asking for donations, and they could be asking for people to actually join in the movement and actually make this bigger, further, faster.
Yes, because that is literally what, like, that is, I've just been thinking about my kind of key messaging and stuff, and I've been doing a lot of work on it recently. And it is like, I help people to turn their message and their mission into a movement. And so it's exactly what you've just said. It's like, you want people to get on board with this. You want them to understand where you're coming from and be as invested in it as you. And that way, you know, you only need a couple of people to start building a movement that can really make an amazing change in the world. So yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. It's like, even if, maybe especially if you've got a mission-led book, you want to give people a way to keep in touch with you after
For sure. Right, I know we've got a few more minutes, but I have to mention this topic, because what conversation cannot go without mentioning this topic, and that is the dreaded AI. So I know you're going to have 110 things to say, so I'm going to keep it like particularly focused, so that we can, you know, just get a few thoughts on that. So, you know, obviously, some people's fear about writing a book could be that they don't trust themselves to write well, for it to sound right, for it to be readable, and all that stuff. And potentially they might think that, you know, using an AI tool or an AI writer and sharing their ideas with that might be a way to, you know, to make it more digestible, readable, whatever. So give us some thoughts about, you know, what might be some helpful uses in terms of like writing your book, and what would be unhelpful and kind of like outsourcing and kind of like not understanding that actually AI tools can like remove your voice.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's really good, because I think I'm getting a bit of a reputation as an AI hater, and it's like it has all sorts of ethical problems, which I'm not going to touch today. But as a tool, it can be really helpful. I use it. What I don't use it for, what I don't let it anywhere near, is my thinking and ideation process and my first draft. And there's a couple of reasons for that. There is a thing called a flattening of language, and that is happening all over. If you spend any amount of time on news sites, on LinkedIn, on anything like that, you're going to see that everybody is beginning to sound the same. And it's spread into social media as well. Like TikTok filters are making everybody look the same. It's really weird. It freaks me out, honestly. And so there's this flattening of language that happens. And it means that your voice is dampened, and it means that you sound just like everybody else. And it means that my Vickyisms disappear, because AI will take it. They wouldn't even think to come up with them, let alone, allow me to keep them in. So there's that. There's also the fact that AI only draws on everything that's already out there. It averages literally everything else that's out there. And what comes out is, by definition, an average. And I'm sorry, but you're worth, I'm going to say you, everyone, people who are listening, you're not average. People who are doing this kind of thing are, by definition, not run of the mill, because most people are never going to write a book. Most people are never going to do this kind of thing. So, and even if you were, there's nothing wrong with being average. Why not try and do something a little bit different? So there's that, but it's like, it also has not got your lived experience. It can draw on what other people have got, but it doesn't know what it's like for me to stand in front of a stage, in front of a room full of 300 people in Bristol on a wet Sunday night on that particular day. It doesn't know that. And so it's not going to be able to tell the same story that I could tell with the same feeling that I can tell it. So, and that, goes for everybody. And it's particularly important, I think, for people who have traditionally been excluded from sharing their voices, because you think about who builds AI, the tech bros, wealthy white men. And it exhibits all of those biases, and there's kind of ethical problems with that, but there's also creative problems with that as well, because you're only getting such a narrow kind of field. So those are where I would say don't use it. Like, do the hard work. Like, creating stuff. Thinking is hard work. Like, your brain uses so many calories thinking, and I think there's a lot of entitlement around that. Oh, everything should be easy. No, everything shouldn't be easy. Like, something should be hard. And come at me, bros, I don't care. But, this stuff is hard work, and it should be, and it's very rewarding. And to try and shortcut that with, it's really hard to come up with ideas. Yeah, it is hard to come up with ideas. Go out and do it anyway, because that's where the joy comes from, and that's where the interesting things are going to come from. And then you can use AI later on to make some stuff a little bit easier. Like, I will record every conversation that I have with, partly because I forget stuff, but I will always ask permission, obviously. But I will record conversations with clients. I will record conversations, interviews that I do, and then I will get AI to transcribe it for me. I will make sure that I've always got the privacy boxes ticked and stuff, so it can get used. But like that, why would I spend hours transcribing something when a machine can do it for me? Why would I spend hours summarizing something when a machine can do it for me? So that's a good use. Another thing that I always do is I pass my first or second draft through it, and I will say, how can I make this better? I'm like, do not rewrite anything. Do not. But like, where is it not flowing? Like, where is the structure a bit woolly? Where am I missing anything? And it'll give me a bunch of pointers, and it'll tell me I'm wonderful, which is problematic. This is the thing. I saw a meme the other day, and it was like somewhere a robot is telling the most problematic person that they're wonderful, and it's like, that's like genuinely alarming. So but it will tell you where your structure falls down, and it'll tell you what's missing, and it'll tell you where you've made typos, and it'll suggest language changes that you probably want to ignore, because it'll, again, flatten your voice. But that's a useful use of it. If you haven't got the money or the budget to invest in a professional editor, then that's one of the next best things that you can do. It's like, it's never going to be as good as a human editor, because human editors have experience and nuance and ideas that they will bring in that AIs can't. But if, I don't want to be elitist here, and not everybody has that option, that access. And so it's like, that is a use that is okay. It's okay in my book. It's like, if that's your option, it'll proofread stuff. We've been using Grammarly for years. That is an AI. It literally proofreads stuff for you. Again, I will always work with a human if I can, for proofreading my books and things. But for stuff like emails and articles, it's like that kind of use of it, I think, is fine. And it just gives people a bit of an extra option. So I hope that has answered.
Yeah, no, that does. And so let me just talk about actually editing. So I actually work with an editor. I do have an editor on my team. That's something I have done since the first book, and something I will continue to do as I publish more books. It's coming, another one coming, Vicky, not this year, potentially, and then one in the next year. But that's another conversation. But the point about editing is it is a partnership. And just as Vicky was saying, that you need to be clear about your ideas and why you're putting it out into the world, and what it is that you are doing. So I want to just talk a bit about, if you have the means to work with an editor, how you need to think about that. Because when I first went into that, I didn't actually know until I went into it. But then as I went into it, I realized that actually, again, like thinking about AI, it's not outsourcing. It is helping someone. It's someone to help you to think about, actually, how can I be more clear? How can I? Does this make sense to someone who is coming to this the first time, who has no idea about my book topic and what I'm trying to communicate? How can I be effective in doing that? And they will suggest to you ways that you could improve. But here's the thing: it's up to you to accept or reject what they are saying, because at the end of the day, it's your tone of voice and what you want to say. Now, for me, this is an interesting dynamic, because I intentionally, and again, people who read my books will know this, well, they won't know this, but I'm going to tell them, I intentionally write in both American and British English. And people, some editors would not be able to cope with that. They'd be like, just do one or the other, just stick with one. I'm like, no, but that is who I am, like as a person, who that's part of my history, part of my story, and it's something that I intentionally do. And that is something that could be jarring for some people. And it could be something that make people, maybe Marmite for them. But the point is, though, when I chose an editor, I told everyone, this is what I'm doing. If you cannot get down with this, we can't work together. So what I want to ask you, Vicky, before we just wrap it up in a minute, is about, what do people need to know about when thinking about working with an editor?
Yeah, really good question. I remember when I asked you that question as well, and you were like, no, it's deliberate. And I was like, oh, cool, okay. It's like, as soon as I know, it's kind of fine. But it's like, yeah. So the first thing I'm going to do is recommend my friend Hannah's book, How to Enjoy Being Edited, because that Hannah de Kaiser, because it is such a good book, and she's written it basically to explain to people what the editing process is like. So that's a really good place to start. But yeah, you really, really want to spend time talking to people who you think you might want to work with, and not feeling like, and the best editors will never make you feel like this anyway, but not feeling like you have to choose somebody just because you've had a conversation, because it's such a personal thing. It's like, and I think it's almost akin to choosing a therapist, because it's like they are going to see they're going to see you at your best, they're going to see you at your worst, they're going to see your meltdowns, they're going to see your joy moments, and they're going to be helping you write something that's incredibly important. Like, it's such a big project, and it's, for most people, it's something that's very, very important to them. And so it's really important to get it right, not just with their editing credentials and like have they done this before, are they good at it, can they show their work, but also, does this person get me? And that's really important, because I have seen it happen that editors have, and a friend of mine had it happen. It's like they changed his voice, and he ended up having to just walk away from the whole thing. But it was like, yeah, and that's kind of, it broke my heart a little bit, because it's just like, this is the thing. So it's like, your voice matters the way it is, and aside from like some bits and pieces where it's like it has to be readable and it has to, people have to be able to understand it. It's like, we don't. The job of an editor is to showcase and enhance somebody's voice and try and make their writing the best that it can be. And so it's really important that they get you. They don't have to necessarily have come from exactly the same background and all the rest of it, but they certainly have to be open to the idea that there are, the stuff that we don't understand, and we need to accept that they know best how to tell their story, and you can advise and you can suggest and you can certainly ask questions, like challenge people. Why are you including this? Why is this going in there? Like, you need to be challenging as well as supportive. But yeah, it's really, put the time into finding somebody who really gels with you, because it's so worth it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So just to reinforce that point and for us to wrap some up in just a moment. So one of the things that, you know, my editor was telling me, you know, at the last moment, I had a sudden brainwave. I was like, you know, oh, I forgot something I want to put in there. And she was like, Ekua, it's kind of done now. No, it's not done. And when I showed her this little bit that I wanted to go in the book, she's a bit like, I don't think it really has anything. I'm like, I've heard what you said, but actually I have decided that this is something that I know to be like important for the people that I am seeking to serve. And as much as it doesn't really like, you know, add a new like thread or a new insight, it is something that I think they need to see so that they can actually engage with the body of what really helps me to even more clearly say. And it was a piece more about like belief, and you know, the confidence that it takes to step up into, you know, being a speaker and all that stuff. And so the other point is that, yeah, you know, yes, they are a professional, and yes, they have expertise, but you have to also make this judgment calls as we've described. And as Vicky has so brightly said, you know, you have to be careful about the right person, and they have to get you, but you also have to feel confident in the relationship that you can say, actually, I've heard what you had to say, but I actually want to do this, and we're going to just let that ride and carry on and be in a relationship where you're secure and you're able to have that back and forth, because it is a lot of back and forth. Like if you get the right person, that's how it should be. And you shouldn't feel like constricted, and you shouldn't feel like judged, because their job is to ask you, you know, have you said everything? Is this really what you mean? And for you to kind of like clarify that stuff. And I think one of the things I want to ask you before we wrap up and tell everyone how to get in touch with us is, you know, how can we feel, you know, not necessarily judged if we're in an editing relationship? You know, how can we be open to the fact that it's not criticism, but it is about just them, you know, being clear about what we're trying to communicate? How can we feel like, you know, emotionally safe? What are there any tips that you give your clients?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and there absolutely are. And this is something that I use for myself as well. I will make sure that I remember why I've asked to work with this person in the first place. It's like I've done that because I know that a book isn't a one-person job. A book is created by many people, and a lot of people have a role in it. It's not written in isolation, and I have brought people in that I think are experts at what they do, that I think will be the best people to help me to write the best book that I possibly can. And so that is what I'm always keeping in mind. And it's like, yeah, okay, sometimes you might get some feedback that stings, sometimes you might get questions that make you go, huh. And it's okay to feel like that. Like have your little moment. I always give myself like 5 minutes to have a little temper tantrum, and then I come back to it and I'm like, I asked for this feedback because I want this to be the best book that I can. Do I agree with it? Have they got a point? Sometimes they have, and I'm like, okay, that's a really good point. And sometimes it's like, no, actually, like you say, no, actually, I stand by what I said. And then you have to justify it to yourself, which is not a bad thing, because sometimes we need to understand why we want stuff to be in there. And so my advice is always remember that you've asked for this, like you've asked for the input and the feedback, and remember that the person giving it to you wants you to write the best book that you possibly can. And that's the difference, I think, between solicited and unsolicited feedback. You don't have to listen to unsolicited feedback. You can do. Sometimes it's helpful, but you know, you haven't asked for it, so you don't owe them anything. But when you have employed an expert to come and work with you, at the very least, you want to be listening to them, even if you don't agree with them. And that can be really, really helpful. And also allowing yourself to have like 5 minutes of a temper tantrum. That's human. It's fine.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Thanks so much, Vicky. Okay, so Vicky, please tell everyone how can they work with you? What's the best way to get in touch, and what are you working on at the moment that you're pretty excited that everyone should know about?
Well, you can get in touch with me. You can get on my email list by going to moxiebooks.co.uk/freebies, and there you can choose between a few things and get on my emails, which are great. People tell me that, not just me. And follow me on LinkedIn. Connect with me on LinkedIn. If you would like to talk to me about writing your book, drop me a DM. We'll get something booked in. And at the moment, I'm really excited because I'm running season 8. Oh my goodness, season 8 of Microbook Magic, starting at the end of March.
Okay.
And that is my group program for helping people write their books, usually short books. So I'll be talking a lot more about that in the weeks to come. But if you wanted to get in there early, you can drop me a DM and tell me you're interested in it, and I can send you all of the details.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much, Vicky. This has been a pleasure and a delight. And just want to tell everyone that writing a book is a team effort. You know, yes, you have to put pen to paper and you have to organize your ideas and all those things. But actually, you know, when you are minded that you want to have the best book you can, finding experts like Vicky and others to help you along with, getting your book out there is the best thing to do. So don't, feel like you've got to do it by yourself. And, whilst, yes, there's a lot of information out there now, it's an information age, but what I want to underline, and I think that Vicky's made this point too, is that talking to people sometimes really does help. And not being afraid to have conversations where it can be like, let's say you reach out to Vicky, for example, and you're not yet ready to start this year, but you want to just have a conversation to find out how can you maybe go on a workshop with Vicky's, or stay on her list, or do a micro action perhaps to get yourself ready to actually be able to go on the bigger mission of the book in the end. So Vicky, any final words?
Just thank you so much for having me. As always, it's been an absolute delight, and your work is amazing. Your book is amazing, and follow Ekua if you don't already.
Oh, thanks, Vicky. Well, yeah, this has been a wonderful session, and I hope that everyone finds value and use in it. And yeah, we will, I'm sure, partner up at some other point. Well, thanks so much, Vicky.
Thank you.
Amazing.